What's up? I just saw this new Tarantino movie called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Let me tell you all about it. So did you know that this was actually going to be a novel that Tarantino worked on for something like 5 years, but eventually he said this would make a great movie, and he made it into a movie. So here we are. And the movie is his, and it really shows his love of movie making. As you saw in his last few movies, which were mainly in the countryside, Django Unchained and The Hateful Eight, there were so many great exterior shots of mountains and billy goats. This is in LA, which he knows and loves well, and you can tell he's kind of excited to be back in the city doing things like that again, so it was a totally different movie. Set in the year 1969, but think about this, Tarantino would have been about 6 years old in 1969, so most of these happenings that he's exploring, he was not really taking part in. He was in grade school or something at home. And this is his pop culture ephemera, just everything that he knows about 1969 in pop culture, and before and after a little. That's what he's throwing into this movie. And there are so many great moments in this movie. It's a movie of great moments. Lots of little scenes that can almost stand on their own as little scenes that stand on their own. And only when I left the theater and thought about it I just saw it last night. So since that time, I've had a little time to ruminate upon it and dream about its deeper import. And I think the scenes that seem so disparate seem to slowly come together in my mind and make a larger picture that I'm still just putting together. But overall, I would say this is a pretty great movie. Do not go into this movie expecting it to be about the Charlie Manson murders and all manner of documentary knowledge about that. That is really just the starting point, maybe the ending point for what this movie is about. And it really touches on that, but Charlie Manson, for instance, hardly even shows up in this movie. This is really not about the Manson murders. And that was the little I heard about it, I tried to avoid. It led me to think this might be a lot more about the Manson murders. I'm glad it wasn't, because it really just lets Tarantino tell his own story, send it in his own direction, and do whatever he wants and not worry about things like facts. There's a lot of retreading of techniques that we've seen before. For example, the over-the-shoulder shot in the car from Kill Bill, the flamethrowers and stuff from Inglourious Basterds, and the stuntmen from Death Proof, things like that. So things that Tarantino has played with before, he's bringing them back and he doesn't really care. He's also indulging in all these pastiches or homages or parodies, however you want to view them, of some of his favorite pop culture nostalgia. He's really an archaeologist of all this stuff and just digging for all these little nuances and things that nobody else is going to remember or really explore the way that he does. And if you like that, it's great. If you don't like that, it'll be horrible. I enjoyed it, and I maybe don't need it quite as much, but I still enjoyed it, and I like seeing where his mind goes with these things. Just seeing the way that he renders violence so meticulously, like a surgeon. And he can make anything fascinating, even just people sitting at a stoplight or a guy feeding his dog food. It's just amazing to watch for some reason. He just knows how to show it. And these attempts to look at older film styles, he's done before in other films for just a few seconds sometimes, but here he'll do it for minutes. And if you're not willing to go along with that, this isn't the film for you. This is, the title I think tells us a lot, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is not real Hollywood. This is a Hollywood of Tarantino's own making, in his own mind. A little of the pop culture memories he has, but also his own experiences in Hollywood. A lot of great characters in this movie, for instance, this hot hippie hitchhiker from hell, and perhaps the most ridiculous scene, the fight scene between Brad Pitt and this Bruce Lee on the set of Green Hornet. It's pretty ridiculous. It's obviously I actually read about this, and it's sort of based on a true event supposedly, but not the way that Tarantino does it. He really stretches it a whole out of proportion, and he just makes it his own, which is great. This movie is so much about the Hollywood process, what it does to people, and how it works. I loved it in that sense, because the little I've worked with actors in film, I see so much of it in this movie. But there was this little girl in the scene that DiCaprio acts with, who's going to be a hostage, and just to see the contrast between her two characters is just wonderful. That was a great scene, a great moment. I don't even know, I can't imagine Tarantino's process if he just has a general goal in mind, or if he just has a bunch of little scenes that he wants to include and just takes it wherever he wants. But I think the end result is just so unique. There's also this great scene where Brad Pitt starts to trip on LSD, but instead of, as most directors would do, like start showing visuals and music and stuff, Tarantino does nothing. All he does is show Brad Pitt just like acting weird and doing things. But it's perfect. I love that restraint. If I had to pick one thing in the movie that I would get rid of, there's this moment when the Manson, three of the Manson family members, are going up to the house, and they're going to be killing some people, and the way they justify it, this girl goes on this long rant about Hollywood and how they made them killers and how they're going to kill some actors now, and that'll be great. And I just thought that was way too, it felt too written and like Tarantino talking perhaps. Maybe it could have just been one line rather than an entire paragraph. That would be my one quibble about this film. It's not a big issue, but I felt it was a bit unnecessary. There's definitely a critique of the Hollywood system, its depravity, its ability to elevate people and also to destroy them. And I felt that rant by the Manson girl was unnecessary. We already got to see that plenty. Overall, I enjoyed this movie quite a bit, and I would love to see it again. I will probably wait until it comes out on DVD or whatever. I think that it has a lot of the trademark things that you associate with Tarantino. Dialogue is pretty sharp and very precision style of cutting and attention to violence and detail, and all this pop culture vomit of 1960s cultures all over the film, and I love that. The narrative arc that we see in this movie is so similar to a lot of Tarantino movies that you see it building and building to this threshold of explosion of violence in this very surgical style. I liked it, and even though you can kind of see something huge coming, I still enjoyed the movie and I would love to see it again. It's wonderful to see him really just rolling around in this medium that he's, I think, mastered at this point in his life, that he can really tell any kind of story and it'll be interesting, it'll be fascinating to just watch. A lot of really wonderful performances. I think Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt were just excellent. They work well together, they work well independently in the movie. I think Brad Pitt should at least be nominated and maybe even win an Oscar. He's never won a Best Actor Oscar, although he has been nominated, so maybe this will be his chance. I think he just did such a wonderful job. I've heard that they really got along well together and they may work again in the future together. Who knows, maybe Tarantino will do another movie with them. He said before that he's going to retire when he's 60, so we have about 4 more years. Maybe we'll get one more movie in, who knows. This has been my favorite Tarantino movie after Pulp Fiction and Kill Bill, so very high up in my ranking of Tarantino movies. And if you like Tarantino at all, if you are okay with the things that he does and how he works, then I think you should definitely see this in the theater and enjoy. Bye.